Hi, I'm Leo Finelli, and you're listening to Generation Change.
This April, we're featuring the incredible Elijah Lee, a 16-year-old student and community activist. Elijah is a national advocate for children, and for the past 6 years, Elijah has organized annual child abuse prevention marches. Elijah is the founder of a nonprofit organization, Hear Our Voices, dedicated to empowering young people with an emphasis on assisting youth in finding their voices and becoming agents of change. Elijah is an active lobbyist with the Virginia General Assembly, advocating and testifying for legislation impacting young people. He serves as a public speaker on the issues of child abuse, racism, oppression, and trauma-informed care. He has served as the keynote speaker for the KIPP National Summit, Indiana NAACP Conference, Prevent Child Abuse in North Carolina Conference, Virginia School Safety Conference, and other events. Elijah serves as the co-president of the Virginia chapter of Voters of Tomorrow, as well as a founding co-chair of the Coalition for Virginia's Future. Elijah is a field organizer for several organizations, with focuses ranging from protecting reproductive freedom to increasing access to mental health services. I had so much to talk about with Elijah, so let's get right into it.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So, welcome to Generation Change. I'm so excited to interview you. I've been doing this podcast for over 3 years and have gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of impactful and amazing Gen Zs.
I don't know how influential and impactful I am compared to my colleagues, but I definitely love the work that I'm able to do.
So, you live in Richmond, Virginia. What do you like about Richmond?
So, a couple of things. I think Richmond has a great amount of diversity, right? Not only in what the people look like, but I think there's just so many different types of people here. People that are great at math and science, people that are great at art, but then also I have an immense love for food. And I think Richmond has some of the best places to eat probably in the entire country. I've been to a couple of states, and I definitely think that Richmond is my favorite when it comes to finding a good place to eat.
I used to drive up through Richmond all the time back when my grandparents lived in the DC area,
Yeah.
and I have these memories of going straight through downtown and right past that giant clock.
Richmond's extremely beautiful. You know, we have a lot of history. Frankly, a majority of it is not great at all. But I think there are a lot of really cool just places to see, places to remember. I mean, if you're at all like a Hamilton fan, at our General Assembly, that's where like Aaron Burr was acquitted for his duel with Hamilton. So it's like a lot of really cool history there that I love about it. And so, yeah.
And what made you first get involved with child abuse prevention?
Yeah, so I started a lot of my child abuse work really when I was around 10 years old back in North Carolina. And I had a friend of mine that was in the first grade when I was in the first grade, and she told me that she had been abused at home, right? And as a first grader, I didn't understand the reality of what so many kids went through. You know what I mean? Like when I went home, I was surrounded by a loving family. We said, I love you to each other every night. So I had no real thought of that. And then as I grew up from first grade, I learned a lot about Black history, right? So like Angela Davis and Huey P. Newton and Fred Hampton and Assata Shakur. And like, I guess like seeing those people take an issue and make change on it, whether it was by marching or public speaking or things like that, I think it really inspired me so that when I got to 10 years old, I led my very first child abuse awareness march. And like from there, it just spiraled. Now I'm here.
So, what was that first march like, and how many people showed up?
Yeah, so the first march that we had was really, really, really successful. It was a really small town called Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, and I think a little over 100 people showed up at that one.
I've been through Roanoke Rapids too.
Yeah. I feel like it's like one of the main spots you pass when you're going down the highway there. So I don't know, I love Roanoke Rapids. It will always be my home.
So you also build safe rooms at hospitals. How does that work?
Yeah, so especially working in the child abuse awareness field, as I got older, I learned more about the science behind it, right? And then the psychology behind it. So like what is trauma? What is trauma-informed care? What are adverse childhood experiences? Things like that. And so through that new knowledge that you usually gain with age, I got a great opportunity to learn about what happens when a person is found in an abusive situation. And the first thing that happens is they go to the hospital for a checkup. And I had two older brothers that played football. So I was like very familiar with what a hospital room looks like. And I just remember like that was never a place that I wanted to be. You know what I mean? It was always very grim, always just very dark, very plain. And I think for a moment, like imagine that you had just lived through in a highly abusive situation. You just saw your parents be dragged away in handcuffs, and now you're here by yourself or with like a random lady from the Department of Social Services. And I think like that was just not the environment that I wanted for young people. So I started it in North Carolina. We raised over $3,000 to build pediatric safe rooms there. So we take these dark and grim, uninviting hospital rooms and we add color and we add games and we add a TV and we add books and we add just a pop of light where kids can go to decompress, to just breathe. And then when I moved to Richmond in the middle of the pandemic. So like I can't have a march, right, in the middle of the pandemic with like 100 people gathering. So instead I converted my efforts there and we raised over $12,500 to do the same thing at a really big hospital in Richmond that has over 850 cases of child abuse a year. And so I'm really, really happy about that work. It was some of the favorite work I've ever done. It was just overall really, really beautiful. The main lesson that I learned through there is that with new knowledge comes new opportunity to get involved.
And you're also the founder of Hear Our Voices. What does that organization do?
Yeah, so Hear Our Voices was created by myself and some people that I work with, probably I think in 2021, I want to say. And the entire point of the organization is to empower young people to get involved. So whether they want to get involved about climate change or child abuse or the impacts of racism or gender discrimination, whatever it is, they come to us and they tell us that. And then it's our job to help make sure they can act in whatever way, shape, or form. So if they need funding, if they need connections, if they need just a little group of people in their corner, that's our job. And so it's just really, really important for us as an organization to be there to support our young people, because I think this, especially talking to other young people. I mean, young people want to make change, right? We have a desire to impact lives. We have a desire to make this world a better place. Sometimes we just don't have the resources, and Hear Our Voices works to fix that.
Wow. And you've even introduced bills in the Virginia state legislation. What were those bills?
Yeah, so the first year that I introduced bills was last year, so in 2023, and we got 6 introduced, and so some of them were relating to trauma-informed care. Some of them were empowering young people to get involved. There was a variety, and 3 of those were able to get passed, which we were proud of, right? We always want more, which is something that we were able to do this year, though. We got 13 bills introduced. So some of them are about gun violence prevention. Some of them are, again, about empowering young people. Some of them about ensuring that people have access to free lunches. Those bills are going to make it through the House and the Senate. The governor is going to be a problem, but what can we do, right? And so we're going to keep advocating. We're going to keep making our voices heard. And just because we have a governor that doesn't always agree with us, we're definitely never going to stop, right? I think the power of young people is that we keep pushing and we keep going and we keep learning and we keep growing no matter what. Plus, one man has never stopped us before, and it's not going to stop us now. And so I'm excited to continue to work with him, as well as also work with the governor. I think there's a lot of room for compromise and progress to be made.
So as a high school student, how are you able to participate in your state government this actively?
Yeah, so this was something that I really had to learn how to do because, as you may know, the state government and government as a whole is an entirely different ball game, right? Politics is unpredictable. Politics is demanding. Politics is a lot, and you have to be on the ball. And so I think you met my friend Bailey, and she was one of the first people that really showed me that you can do school and government at the same time. And really just takes a lot of balance. Yeah, there are times where, you have a sleepless night here or there. But I think a lot of it is just that you have to remember why you're doing this work, right? You have to remember that you're doing this work because you want something better, right? Not only for yourself, but for people to come. And I think like that alone inspires me. And so it makes everything else like worth it and very easy to do if it's for that purpose.
I didn't realize you knew Bailey.
Yeah, no, Bailey and I are best friends. I met her when I became the co-president of the Virginia chapter of Voters of Tomorrow. And so she, as you know, like continues to work on the national side and I get to work on the state side. And also like we're the two youngest members of the organization. And so we have a lot of fun together. I think we get into trouble sometimes, but like it's never too bad that we can't pull ourselves out of it.
So you've spoken at events around the country. What do you like about traveling?
Yeah, so I love to travel. It's probably like one of my favorite things ever. And I think speaking has given me a really great opportunity to travel all over. The thing I probably love most is just meeting new people, right? I work really hard to never live in an echo chamber where like only I'm surrounding myself with people that are just like me, but I love to meet new people to see like what are things that interest them, right? What makes them tick? What makes them move? How do they feel about where they are? Because also like that, like when I go back home to create change, right? I don't want it to be just be my experiences. You know what I mean? So much of my advocacy has been based on other people. And so my favorite thing about traveling is being able to meet new people to as well as to explore new places. I love being able to go out and go to new restaurants or to see cool things in the town and downtown especially. I love the city. And so I think my favorite thing about traveling is just being able to like see something new to get out of Richmond. I love Richmond so much, but you know, a breath of fresh air never hurt.
Sounds a lot like me.
Yeah.
And all of your amazing work has given you the opportunity to meet Kelly Clarkson on our talk show twice.
Yeah. And you know, that was something you don't expect, right? Like you're in this work for like I really do love this work and being able to just work with other people. So like when we got that email, I was a little surprised, but it was a great experience. She's an amazing, amazing woman, just truly a phenomenal person. But yeah, it was really, really, really cool.
And you were also featured in Marvel's Hero Project. Does that mean there's a comic book about you?
So yeah. So a part of that project, they were really working to just highlight, you know, 20 kids doing amazing things. I was really honored to be one of those 20. I think the 19 other kids, they're just so spectacular. And I've met many of them, all of them virtual, some of them in person, and they are just truly just great people. You know what I mean? Like they're just truly just phenomenal, phenomenal people. And so and a part of that project was that we got the episode and then we also got a comic made. And that was also really, really, really cool. Cause I'm a huge superhero person. I love going to the Marvel movies. I love reading the Marvel books, especially in the old comic books. One of my friends who worked on the Marvel Hero projects gave me like a giant stack of comic books, and some of them were from like 1970 something. So those were really cool to like look back and see some originals.
And how did you feel about going Hollywood? Do you feel that Marvel and Kelly Clarkson showed you as the real you?
Yeah, so 100%. So I think that both Marvel and Kelly Clarkson did a great job of showing me as the real me. And one thing that, you know, I'm always naturally worried about is, you know, some of the things that we're talking about, they could seem as not as important, right? Or because they're coming from a young person, they could seem not as valued. And I think I was really worried that I wasn't going to be valued enough in these spaces. But I think Kelly Clarkson and Marvel, they proved me wrong, right? They showed me that our world is ready to welcome young people and welcome young people authentically. You know what I mean? Like I remember like talking about things like I want to one day live in a world where people don't have to worry about paying for healthcare, right? I want to one day live in a world where people are able to work a quality job. I want to live in a world where young people feel like they can have power. And so I was really happy to see that they were still able to share those ideas, to share those values, but empower other young people in the process.
And how did your high school friends feel about you given all that you've accomplished? Hopefully, they're very supportive.
Oh yeah, they're extremely supportive, but I don't think they care. Like I think they still see me as the same kid, as the same Elijah Lee that like comes to school. Like right now I'm at school wearing a sweatshirt and pajama pants. And I think that's how they're always going to see me no matter what I do. And I kind of love that about my friends, you know. I really, really want friends that are able to just stick with me. And however, like despite all that, they are easily the most supportive group of people I've I've ever encountered. They're always there, and it means the world to me.
A lot of my friends, including the people I've met on this podcast, are like that too. They're just not physically here. And so
Yeah.
I mostly just call and text them. I wish I could see them in person more often, though.
Yeah, well, I think like that's one thing that I love about like technology and everything is that like it brings people closer. But like, it's like I live in Virginia, Bailey lives in Connecticut, and we're like best friends. And so it sucks that you can't see them, but also makes like the time you have together much more valuable. You know what I mean? As fellow young people that are involved in this work, we share a passion for helping people. And so it's always good to be around other people that share that, right? You're unified by your want and your desire to do what you can to make the world a better place. And so I think that's always an enjoyable moment.
So you're in high school, and where would you like to go to college?
So that is a great conversation, right? And especially in my household, I really want to find a place where I can still, do the work that I do, but I also love learning. I love school. I'm really committed to my academics. So in an ideal world, I go to Brown and I want to study political science. And then I am seriously considering going to law school after that, just because I love the law. I love learning about the law. I love learning about how to use the law to help people. And I would love, love, love to be a lawyer, especially like a public defender. I think that I'm not going to make any money, but I think that's a job that I'm very, very, very much willing to do.
Why Brown?
So first and foremost, I had a chance to go to Brown for their campus, and I love Brown's campus. I think it was just really, really beautiful. It was perfect size. And also, I know a couple people that went to Brown. And so the people there are just so nice. And like, I think they also have a great culture there that's extremely accepting. It is rather liberal, which I do appreciate. And then also, like, Brown is a really phenomenal school, especially when it comes to the areas of political science. And just like the quality of classes at Brown, I think as well, is something that is drawing me in. So I think it has like the academic components that you want, but also like the social components. College is supposed to be a time where you have fun, and I want to be able to do that. And I think Brown is like the perfect place for that for me.
And when and where is your next march in Richmond?
Yeah, so I'm really, really, really excited to officially announce that we will be having our next event on April 13th from 1 to 2 p.m. in Monroe Park in Richmond, Virginia. We are expanding our mission a little bit, so we won't only talk about child abuse awareness, but we're calling it the Amplifying Youth Voices event, and we're going to talk about all issues relating to young people. So that includes gun violence, that includes substance use disorder, that includes climate change, ensuring that we have access to quality education, ensuring that our teachers are paid correctly and appropriately. And so we're really, really excited to kind of expand to show that young people right now are in dire need of support. And there are phenomenal youth advocates, people like the ones that work in Voters of Tomorrow, across the country working to empower young people and to make this country better. However, it's also the job of the community to support young people in that process as well. And so I'm really, really, really excited about the event. We are revving up for it, and I know it's going to be a great opportunity just to see our community come together.
How have you seen all these amazing things you do affect actual real change?
That's a really great question. Just because I love research, I'm a huge data person. And so everything that we do is evidence-based in our practices. And I don't believe in doing anything that I know for a fact won't help people. And so a part of that is something that I'm really excited to be able to see more often is like working with the pediatric safe rooms, for example. We're able to hear about how students who are young people who may have experienced a loss in their family, who may have been abused at home, who may have had a really traumatic incident just happen, how they're able to use that room, how they're able to decompress. And also something that I didn't even consider is that when they're in a safer environment, it's much easier for them to talk. And so by the time that it's time for police to come in and interview them, or by the time it's time for someone from Department of Social Services to come in, because the young person feels like they're in a safe environment, it's much easier for them to communicate what they've been through, which then helps us ensure that proper consequences are given out and to make sure that we're keeping this person safe. Like safety is our number one priority. So definitely the pediatric safe rooms. I think with our bills, we are seeing those more in a kind of like a policy situation. And so that's a little bit harder to measure. But we've definitely heard stories of people that have come up to us saying like, oh, because of this bill that you all passed, I was able to get a job. or because of this bill that you all passed, someone talked to me and that helped save my life. And I think those are always the most meaningful to me, as well as like sometimes we submit bills that don't get passed, but other young people hear about them and that encourages them to get involved. And so I think that's probably the most rewarding is seeing how the work that I do and the work that I do with my colleagues, how that empowers other young people. And now those young people are involved in this work too. And I think that's the primary way that our work is impacting other people.
What would you say is the core purpose of everything you do?
That is a brilliant question. I think that the core purpose of everything that we do is creating a world where every single person can succeed, while also ensuring that young people always feel as though their voices will be heard. I would dream of a world where, I don't have to do anything that I do. I dream of a world where I don't have to work, where I can sit back and relax and go to school and just live life. However, that's just not the world that we live in right now. Because there are still people that because of systems, that because of our culture, they can't succeed. And I plan to work until we get there. But I also want to ensure that young people, we understand that not only do we have a voice, but that is the most powerful tool we have for change. And that I believe young people working to make change is so powerful because young people have resilience. I mean, we have persistency, we have energy, we have a new level of life about us, right? And most importantly, we have hope, right? And so, yes, let's take the wisdom from the older generations, but because of the fact that we are young, we have these dreams of a great, great world. And what made so many great leaders in history great leaders is because they had dreams of something better. So I say, get involved before you grow up, get involved before you start viewing the world as what this is just how it is. The amount of times that I was explaining a problem to a student and they said, and why? And I couldn't give them an answer. It made me think that our world doesn't have to be like this. And sometimes young people are the only ones willing to think that and do something about it. So I think so much of my work is just making sure that young people understand that it is because we are young that we are most powerful when it comes to changing the world.
You have so many insightful, powerful things to say. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. And also I'm really excited and honored. I mean, your podcast is absolutely brilliant. I have loved watching and listening to the episodes. And so thank you so much for having me on.
Ooh, how many have you listened to?
I think I may have lost count. I want to say probably around 5 or so. And so I started it as a ritual as I go into school. I try to listen to one just because I think it's also so cool to hear about other young people, right, doing cool things around the world. It inspires my work every day. And so I'm really excited.
Thank you. Is Bailey Honey the only person you really knew?
Yeah. So everyone else, it was the first time that I had a chance to listen to them and get to know who they were. And so it was also really cool. Sometimes you forget that you're one person in one place working with countless others, right? And just because I know a lot of the youth advocates of Virginia, I'm realizing that I don't know half the ones in our country. And I think that's also really exciting. We're never in this work alone. I just love being able to know about other young people and how we're working together as a community. And I think it also, again, gives me hope for the future to know how many great people are doing great things and to know that they still have such a long life ahead of them.
Totally. Thank you again for coming on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Elijah is one of the most accomplished people I've ever had on this podcast. I don't know if there has been anyone on the show who has worked on as many causes as he has. He's a multi-hyphenative activism whose belief in the power of young people drives everything he does and reminded me of why I do this pod. Elijah and I both love to travel, meet other people, and hear and learn from different opinions. I would very much like to meet him in person someday. If you live in or near Richmond, Virginia, you can meet him at his Amplifying Youth Voices event at Monroe Park in Richmond on Saturday, April 13th. You can learn more about Elijah on his website, incredibleelijah.com, or follow him on Instagram at Elijah4JusticeLee.
If you'd like to recommend someone to be on the show, or if you would like to be on the show, email us at generationchange@leofinelli.com. Please follow us on Instagram at GenChangeWithLF, that's at GenChangeWithLF. Subscribe and review wherever you get your podcasts, and share this with your friends and others. Generation Change with Leo Finelli is hosted by Leo Finelli, executive produced by Julie Finelli, and edited by Nick and Leo Finelli. Our original music was composed and performed by Leo Finelli. Thank you so much for listening.